So it's right around 2 p.m. on Friday, January 27th. I actually won these flowers yesterday at a networking event that I attended at the Prudential Center, as I sometimes do. I do belong to a couple of networking groups throughout the Boston area, one of them being a biological professionals networking group. And then I have this networking group and another one, but this one had an event yesterday that was a lot of fun, and thankfully I was able to make it over there just after having been in court with the landlord for over 3.5 hours yesterday morning, which was January 26th. And one thing that I just realized by being in court with the landlord is that they are determined to do whatever they can and have to do to get me out of my unit under any pretext and any reason. So they've been desperately trying to come up with one reason after another over the last year and a half to try to get me out of this unit. The first thing was that I owed them rent during the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic, everybody lost their jobs or nobody was working. So of course, a lot of people were behind on their rent. And even in the middle of a pandemic, the landlord took me to court for owing them money. But because there was a moratorium on evictions at that time, I was able to come up with the rent money while we were waiting for, evictions to resume. And the landlord didn't have any ground to stand on after that in terms of getting me out of my unit. So a few months later, they came up with this reason that they needed to get me out of my unit because they needed to do construction in the walls. And then I had to go to court over that. And then it turned out that didn't pan out for the landlord. Their reasons for claiming they needed to take down the walls were not really valid. So that fell apart in court for them. And a few months later, actually just a month and a half after that case ended, they came up with another reason to try to get me out of my unit, which is that I am being horribly racist towards other tenants. So racism these days is pretty much everything and anybody and anyone who says something that you don't like. Everybody is racist. The government is racist. Police officers are racist. Schools are racist. Numbers are racist. Math is racist. Certain brands of clothing are racist. Everybody's racist. So you can't prove racism because it's everywhere. It's whatever you want it to be. And because I do not verifiably interact in any way, in any shape or form with any of the tenants who live in this building, I actively do everything I can to stay away from them and not have anything to do with them. I cannot be possibly quoted as saying or doing anything racist towards them because what I'm doing is getting away from them. So getting away from somebody is not racist. It's simply you trying to have your space and not interact with people who might actually try to physically assault you if you talk to them. And that's not an exaggeration. I've been physically assaulted by over probably about 10 to 12 tenants at this point in the number of years that I've lived in this building. So me not wanting to talk to them or have anything to do with them or interact directly with them is simply me trying to protect myself. I mean, that's not racism. It's just self-protection. Unless you want to be one of those crazy people who calls self-protection racism, right, against certain groups of people. But then again, they're trying to assault me. So maybe they're being racist towards me. So do you see where I'm going with this whole ridiculous conversation about racism? It's a slippery slope. And once you start going down that road, anybody and anything that you don't like can be called racist. So because I do not make racist comments to anybody, I do not talk to these people, I don't have anything to do with them, nobody can possibly verifiably and factually state or claim that I actually said such and such to them on such and such date at such and such time and quote me directly and have any kind of factual backup for their allegations. The other thing here is that the landlord has been making false allegations about me to the court, and that is a very serious matter because that is perjury. So the landlord basically perjured themselves yesterday by stating to an officer of the court that multiple other tenants have restraining orders against me, which is like, what? Like, really? You're kidding, right? That's a joke. Because I do not speak to other tenants, let alone have anything to do with them. Nobody can possibly obtain a restraining order against me because I'm not talking to them, right? They don't have nothing to go by. And in order to get a restraining order, you physically have to have been either assaulted or almost physically assaulted, threatened by somebody directly, not in your imagination and not indirectly, but directly with them standing in front of you. And then you have to prove to the court that this happened. And then you have to take that person to court in front of a judge. And then the judge has to decide whether to grant you your restraining order. And because none of that ever happened with any of these nut jobs who live in this building, these people are verifiably mentally unstable. That's why they live in this building. I just found out that this is a Section 8 building, which I didn't know before. And I am not a Section 8 tenant, but pretty much everybody else is. So there's that. That speaks for itself. But the landlord claimed that multiple other tenants have restraining orders against me. These restraining orders don't exist. They were never, ordered by a judge. I don't have any claims against me by any tenants because nobody has taken me to court. The only way you can get a restraining order against anybody is if you physically go to court, and then they have to go to court too to defend themselves. That never happened. And because that never happened, no restraining orders exist against me at all whatsoever in any way, shape, or form anywhere on this planet. But the landlord claims that this is true. So he's an idiot. This is the Greenville Group, and the landlord is Oleg Eliseyev. He's actually not the landlord. He is the property manager, and he has been making false claims against me and about me nonstop for the last 10 years. So he's been telling the police that I'm a prostitute. He's been telling the court that multiple other tenants have restraining orders against me, which is a complete and verifiable lie. No tenant has ever tried to take me to court for any reason, restraining order or no restraining order. There has been no legal action against me whatsoever by any of these tenants because I don't do anything. And I'm certainly not a prostitute or have ever come close to being a prostitute or any other kind of sex worker. So the landlord has perjured himself in front of the officer of the court yesterday by claiming that multiple other tenants have restraining orders against me that do not exist, that have never existed, that were never even brought to the attention of any law enforcement or anything like that. So again, if you want to get a restraining order against someone, because I have restraining orders against other tenants, I mean, I'm the one who verifiably has stay-away orders against several other tenants, Wender Rodriguez, Charles Thomas, and Edward Hurtado, all of whom have lived in this building complex, and all of whom I had to take to court to get restraining orders against. You have to go to court, and then a judge has to issue that restraining order. You can't just magically conjure up a restraining order because somebody is doing something that hurts your feelings. That's not a restraining order, but these people are so stupid, you can't tell them that. And the landlord is included in that group of stupid people who don't seem to understand how things work.